The night of May 20th, 2023, started like any other for 11-year-old Aderrien Murry and his family in Indianola, Mississippi. Little did they know that a call for help would turn into a nightmare, leaving a young boy fighting for his life and a community grappling with the consequences of a police officer's split-second decision. Aderrien, a bright and energetic child who had always looked up to law enforcement, found himself in the middle of a domestic disturbance involving his mother and her ex-boyfriend. As tensions escalated, Aderrien's mother, Nakala Murry, instructed him to call 911, hoping to defuse the situation and ensure the safety of her family. When Indianola police officer Greg Capers arrived at the scene, he approached the house with his weapon drawn, banging on the door and demanding that everyone inside come out. Nakala emerged first, her hands raised in compliance with the officer's orders. "Let me see your hands," Capers can be heard yelling on the body camera footage, his voice filled with urgency and aggression.
It ain't that easy.
A dispatcher tells Capers he has permission to break down the door, but he's not able to. The door opens and an adult woman comes out.
Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Where's he at? Where's he at?
Nakala, in a moment of fear and confusion, indicated that the adult suspect was still somewhere inside the house. Officer Capers, perhaps sensing the potential danger, stepped into the home, continuing to shout commands as he moved through the rooms.
Police! You got any weapons, you better put them down. Oh my God!
It was then that young Aderrien, hearing the commotion and wanting to help, came around a corner with his hands raised in surrender. "Police!" he called out, trying to make his presence known and show that he was not a threat. But in a heartbreaking twist of fate, Officer Capers reacted with force, firing his weapon less than a second after Aderrien appeared. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the house, and Aderrien, a look of shock and pain etched on his young face, ran from the house in fear and shock. "Oh my God," Capers can be heard saying on the body camera footage, the gravity of what had just occurred sinking in. He immediately radioed for help, his voice tinged with panic as he requested medical assistance for the wounded child.
Mess that! Mess that! We need her now!
Aderrien, bleeding and struggling to breathe, was rushed to the hospital, where the extent of his injuries became clear. The bullet had torn through his small body, collapsing his lung, fracturing his ribs, and lacerating his liver. As doctors worked to save his life, his mother waited anxiously, praying for a miracle.
He started singing gospel. He started praying. We started praying. We're very religious.
Did you think your son was going to die?
At that moment, I didn't know.
The pain in Nakala's eyes spoke volumes. News of the shooting spread quickly, and the community of Indianola found itself grappling with a range of emotions: shock, anger, and disbelief. How could a police officer, someone sworn to protect and serve, shoot an unarmed 11-year-old boy in his own home? As Aderrien fought for his life in the hospital, his family began their fight for justice. They staged a sit-in at Indianola City Hall, demanding answers and calling for the release of the body camera footage that captured the horrific incident. The footage, when it was finally made public, only intensified the outrage surrounding the case. It showed Aderrien, a mere child, coming around the corner with his hands raised, only to be met with a bullet to the chest. For Aderrien, the physical pain was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey. In an exclusive interview with ABC News, he described the moment he was shot, his voice still filled with a mix of fear and confusion.
I came out doing this. When Greg shot me, I did this to my chest.
The psychological trauma of being shot by a police officer, someone Aderrien had once looked up to and aspired to be like, has left deep scars that may never fully heal. Officer Greg Capers, the man behind the trigger, was initially suspended without pay while the shooting was investigated. However, in a move that shocked and angered many, a grand jury declined to indict him, and the city of Indianola reinstated him to the police department just a month later. For Nakala Murry and her family, this decision was a slap in the face, a clear indication that the system they had trusted to protect them had failed. They vowed to continue their fight for justice, exploring every legal avenue available to them. The shooting of Aderrien Murry has once again brought the issue of police violence and the use of excessive force to the forefront of the national conversation. It has raised serious questions about the training and tactics employed by law enforcement, particularly when it comes to interactions with children and communities of color.
It was just so very brutal and gross, and it's just, how could any sane, trained officer shoot first and then look second? I mean, this boy came out with his hands up.
For Aderrien and his family, the road ahead is long and uncertain. The physical wounds may heal with time, but the emotional trauma will likely be a lifelong burden. The innocence of childhood has been shattered, replaced by a deep-seated fear and mistrust of the very people who are supposed to keep them safe. As the community of Indianola rallies around the Murry family, demanding accountability and change, the rest of the nation watches and waits. Will this be the moment that finally sparks meaningful reform in policing practices? Will Aderrien's story be the catalyst for a broader reckoning with the systemic issues that have plagued law enforcement for generations? Only time will tell. But for now, the focus remains on supporting Aderrien and his family as they navigate this unimaginable ordeal. It remains on honoring the bravery and resilience of a young boy who came face to face with the darkest aspects of human nature and somehow found the strength to keep going. In the end, the shooting of Aderrien Murry is a tragedy that should never have happened. It is a painful reminder of the work that still needs to be done to ensure that every member of our society, regardless of age or race, can feel safe and protected in their own homes and communities. In our next clip, a 15-year-old boy found himself at the receiving end of a police officer's bullet after a tragic misunderstanding. The boy, who was carrying a fake gun, was shot by Officer Ryan Westlake in Akron, Ohio, leaving the teenager severely injured and the community grappling with the consequences of the officer's split-second decision. The incident unfolded on a seemingly ordinary day in the Goodyear Heights neighborhood, when a concerned citizen called 911 to report a teen pointing a gun at homes. Officer Westlake, a member of the Akron Police Department, responded to the call, unaware that the weapon in question was, in fact, a fake. As the officer approached the young man, body camera footage captured the tense exchange that would forever change the lives of all involved.
Where are you coming from? Can I see your hands real quick?
In a matter of seconds, the situation escalated as the teen revealed what appeared to be a gun.
Oh shit! Hey,
Shit. Hey, it's fake! It's
Shots
fake.
fired! Shots fired!
It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake!
Shots fired!
The teenager, now wounded, dropped to the ground as the officer continued to shout commands. The realization starting to set in for both of them in the severity of the situation.
Drop to the ground! Drop to the ground! Drop to the ground!
It's fake!
Drop to the ground! Drop to the ground!
The officer, understanding the gravity of what just happened, called for medical assistance. The body camera footage paints a picture of confusion and chaos, with the young man repeatedly expressing his innocence and the fake nature of the gun. As paramedics arrived on the scene, the officer attempted to reassure the injured teen.
Please, sir, please.
Relax, man. Relax.
Please. It's fake. It's fake. It's a fake gun. I promise.
Get the gun's right there.
I was scared, bro.
Hey, tourniquet. Tourniquet now.
As the gravity of the situation continued to unfold, the officer worked to provide first aid to the wounded teenager. The young man's cries for help and explanations of his innocence continued to echo through the body camera footage. News of the shooting quickly spread through the community, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. As reporters dug into Officer Westlake's personnel file, a troubling history of disciplinary actions and use of force incidents came to light. In 2021, Officer Westlake had been fired from the Akron Police Department after multiple incidents and behaviors that discredited the department. However, he was later reinstated and served a 71-day suspension before returning to active duty.
Digging through Officer Westlake's personnel file, we found multiple disciplinary actions and a use of force incidents. In 2021, he was fired and then reinstated by the department after multiple incidents and behaviors and actions that discredited the department.
The revelation of the officer's past misconduct only fueled the anger and frustration of the community, particularly the family of the injured teenager. They demanded that Officer Westlake be held accountable for his actions, questioning how an officer with such a history could be allowed to continue serving on the force. As the young man recovered in the hospital, his family spoke out about the incident, their grief and disbelief palpable.
I'm a good kid, bro. I get A's in school. I play football. I just wanted to be safe. My cousin just died.
The shooting of the 15-year-old boy has once again brought the issue of police use of force to the forefront of the national conversation. It has raised questions about the training and judgment of officers, particularly when it comes to distinguishing between real and fake weapons. The incident has also highlighted the deep-seated mistrust and tension that exists between law enforcement and communities of color. Many have pointed to the shooting as yet another example of the disproportionate use of force against young black men, even in situations where they pose no real threat. As the investigation into the shooting continues, the community of Akron is left grappling with the aftermath of this tragic event. The young man, who had just attended his cousin's funeral, now faces a long road to recovery, both physically and emotionally. The body camera footage serves as a painful reminder of the split-second decisions that officers must make in the line of duty, and the devastating consequences that can result when those decisions are wrong. It is a call to action for law enforcement agencies across the country to reevaluate their training and protocols, to ensure that officers are equipped to handle high-stress situations with empathy, restraint, and a commitment to preserving human life. For the family of the injured teenager, the road ahead is uncertain. They must now navigate the complex and often frustrating process of seeking justice and accountability, while also supporting their loved one through the long and difficult journey of healing. But even in the face of such tragedy, there is hope. The outpouring of support and solidarity from the community has been a testament to the resilience and compassion of the human spirit. People from all walks of life have come together to demand change, to call for greater transparency and accountability in policing, and to stand with the family of the young man whose life was forever changed on that fateful day. As the story of this shooting continues to unfold, it is a reminder of the work that still needs to be done to build trust and understanding between law enforcement and the communities they serve. It is a call to action for all of us to do our part in creating a more just and equitable society, one where every person, regardless of age or race, can feel safe and protected. The shooting of this 15-year-old boy is a tragedy that should never have happened. But perhaps, through the pain and the struggle, it can be a catalyst for change, a moment that galvanizes us to build a better, more compassionate world. For the sake of this young man, and for all those who have been victimized by police violence, we must not rest until that day comes. As traumatic as the shootings can be, sometimes they can be fatal. Our next video shows the tragic incident that has left a family grieving and a community demanding answers. 17-year-old Dalaneo Martin was fatally shot by a police officer in Washington, D.C. The events leading up to the teenager's death have raised serious questions about the use of force and the tactics employed by law enforcement.
Police! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move!
The story begins with a stolen white SUV parked on a quiet street in the nation's capital. Inside, Dalaneo Martin, known affectionately as Debo to his loved ones, was sleeping, unaware of the impending confrontation that would cost him his life. As police officers from the U.S. Park Police and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, MPD, arrived on the scene, they carefully strategized the best way to approach the vehicle and apprehend the suspected thief. Their goal was to make the arrest with the least amount of trouble, but what followed was anything but peaceful. The officers decided on a plan. One cop from the U.S. Park Police would cut open the back window, which was covered in plastic, while another would open the opposite door.
Just don't get caught inside of that car. So,
one officer can be heard saying on the body camera footage, a chilling foreshadowing of the tragedy to come. As the officers made their move, Dalaneo Martin suddenly awoke, startled by the commotion. In the ensuing scuffle, the teenager managed to start the car and speed off, with the park police officer still in the back seat. It was at this moment that the situation took a deadly turn. The officer, now trapped inside the fleeing vehicle, opened fire, striking Dalaneo multiple times. The car crashed to a halt on 36th Street NE, and the young man's life was cut tragically short. News of the shooting quickly spread through the community, sparking outrage and demands for transparency. At a news conference, Dalaneo's mother, Teresa Martin, expressed her anger and disbelief at her son's killing.
How are we going to justify this? The officer can't justify this.
Teresa Martin emphasized that her son's alleged involvement in the theft of the car was not the issue at hand.
You know at this point, if he stole it, if somebody else stole it, or do you not know?
That is not something that we are discussing at this point, or we're prepared to discuss at this point. All we know is that he was in it and he was sleeping, which is not illegal.
The U.S. Park Police Union, however, defended the actions of the officer who shot Dalaneo, claiming that the use of force was justified. This stance only served to fuel the anger and frustration of the community, who saw the incident as yet another example of excessive force used against a young black man. As the investigation into the shooting unfolded, more disturbing details began to emerge. According to the Martin family's lawyer, a witness reported that Dalaneo had been choked during the confrontation with the officers. The coroner's report, too, painted a grim picture, confirming that the teenager had been shot 6 times. The revelation that Dalaneo had been shot multiple times in the back raised serious questions about the necessity and proportionality of the officer's actions. Many in the community wondered why less lethal options, such as a taser, had not been deployed instead. Amid the growing outcry, the Martin family and their supporters took to the streets, marching from Benning Road NE to the site of the shooting on 36th Street NE. They carried signs and chanted slogans, demanding justice for Dalaneo and calling for greater accountability from law enforcement.
Why wasn't a taser deployed? Why was the officer in the back of his car?
As the march made its way through the neighborhood, the raw emotion and pain of the community were palpable. For many, Dalaneo's death was not just a personal tragedy, but a symbol of the broader issues of police brutality and systemic racism that have plagued the nation for far too long. The DC Police Department, which is leading the investigation into the shooting, has released some details about the events of that fateful night. According to their account, Dalaneo was found sleeping inside the stolen car with the ignition running. When the officers attempted to remove him, the teenager allegedly resisted, leading to the struggle that ultimately ended in his death. However, many in the community remain skeptical of the official narrative, pointing to inconsistencies and unanswered questions. The fact that the U.S. Park Police, unlike the MPD, is not required to release body camera footage within 5 days in cases of excessive force has only added to the sense of frustration and mistrust. At the news conference, the Martin family's legal team called on the Department of Justice to conduct an independent investigation into the shooting. They argued that the lack of transparency and accountability from the Park Police made it necessary for an outside agency to step in and ensure a fair and impartial inquiry.
No matter what y'all found or what y'all think y'all found, so nothing. My brother deserves to be here. He's 17.
The pain and heartbreak of the Martin family were echoed by many in the community, who saw Dalaneo's death as a senseless and avoidable tragedy. They pointed to the long history of police violence against young black men and the need for systemic change in the way law enforcement interacts with communities of color. As the investigation continues and the community awaits answers, the memory of Dalaneo Martin looms large. He was a young man with his whole life ahead of him, a beloved son, brother, and friend, whose potential was cut short in the most devastating way possible. For Teresa Martin and her family, the road ahead is long and uncertain. They must now grapple with the unimaginable pain of losing a child, while also fighting for justice and accountability in a system that has too often failed them. But even in the face of such tragedy, there is hope. The outpouring of support and solidarity from the community has been a testament to the resilience and strength of those who knew and loved Dalaneo. They have come together to demand change, to call for greater transparency and oversight in policing, and to ensure that no other family has to endure the same heartbreak. As the story of Dalaneo Martin continues to unfold, it serves as a powerful reminder of the urgent need for police reform and racial justice in America. It is a call to action for all of us to stand up against violence and oppression, to demand accountability from those in power, and to work towards a future where every person, regardless of the color of their skin, can feel safe and protected in their own communities. The death of Dalaneo Martin is a tragedy that should never have happened. But perhaps through the pain and the struggle, it can be a catalyst for change, a moment that galvanizes us to build a more just and equitable world. For Dalaneo, for his family, and for all those who have been victimized by police violence, we must not rest until that day comes.